Howdy folks, Joe here with Just Your Average Joe's EDC, and tonight I'm talking a little bit about the Imperial / Hammer brand Kamp King knife. Now this is a knife I've restored. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the knife and the restoration itself. But first, if you're new here, I appreciate your stopping by. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. I like to talk about knives, I like to restore knives. This is a way to do all those things. If you dig that, then like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. So, I restored this knife a few months back. Well, more than a few, maybe 4 or 5. Now, it's not a professional restoration because I'm not a professional restorer. This is just a hobby, and I'm completely learning on the job. So this particular knife, when I got it, was heavily rusted. It was difficult to open. It had wear issues, and the shell cover, the cover that went over the shell handles here, the scales, was basically desiccated and falling off. Think like an insect shell from a desiccated insect. It was that sort of color of like a cockroach brown, and it was just crumbling and falling off. It was bad. So essentially what I did was, since this is a shell knife and these little tabs here let you release the outer scales, I just released the scales and then I wrapped the scales in vinyl. I'm very happy with this side. I think it looks really good, nice and smooth. There was no real challenges with this side. This side, another story. It's not perfect. There's a little bit of, well, I guess you would call it a little bit of variance in the way it was applied. It was difficult to get it on because of the shield here. So I put it on and then I rubbed it over the top of the shield to have an outline. Then I cut it out with an X-Acto knife, and that left just a few wrinkles and stuff. I tried it a couple of times, and basically this is as good as it got. So I just decided to go with it. As I said, not a professional restorer. Now, a little bit about the history of this knife. So Hammer Brands was bought by, at least the name, was bought by Imperial. I believe they bought it in the 1930s. Now, it was originally owned by the New York Knife Company. Now, what Imperial was trying to do here was make like a value line. Maybe for kids, maybe to be sold in hardware stores, that kind of a thing. So Hammer Brands was their value line of knives. Now, if you'll look closely, as I bring this tang stamp up on the can opener itself, now that tang stamp reads 2391732. Now I cannot show you the tang stamp for the shell, but that's 2391701. Those two tang stamps right there represent patents, and those patents were granted on December 25th, Christmas Day, 1945, to Felix and Michael Mirando. So this shell covering became an industry standard, and this can opener became an industry standard. So basically what happened is Imperial started making these knives under the Hammer brand. So what year is this one from? My guess is that this is a 1945 to 1955 one. The reason behind that is it clearly reads Hammer brand. The brand is under Hammer and USA is vertical. So according to the research I've seen, this means it's 45 to 55. So obviously, if the patent was granted the last day, or excuse me, Christmas Day of 1945, that means that the earliest this knife really could have realistically been produced is 46. So realistically, a 46 to a 55. Now, the reason why I say 55 and not 56 or whatever is because in 1956, that's when the Hammer brand got retired. Imperial decided to no longer use the name Hammer brand. They just went straight back to Imperial. And it's kind of funny because during that entire time, many of these knives were made under the Imperial brand and the Hammer brand. It'd be the exact same knife. It would look the same, it would function the same. One would read Imperial, one would read Hammer. I don't necessarily know that they needed to keep two lines going, and I guess at some point they decided that they didn't want to. But regardless, I'm fairly happy with this restoration. I'm not a huge Boy Scout / camp knife fan. I do not seek them out. I do think they're fun and interesting. They're a cool precursor to the multi-tool and the Swiss Army knife. Of course, obviously, this is a very standard, basic one. It doesn't even have an awl or anything like that. You got your blade, you got your can opener, you got your cap lifter, and you got your screwdriver. So, you know, the thing about these knives is eventually they were going to get replaced by Swiss Army knives and things like that, but they certainly have their place in American history. And I could see a boy carrying this, or a guy, who maybe worked with his hands and needed something to be able to pop his soda bottles open, or, pop his bottles open, or open a can. Or maybe he works in a garage and he's popping open a can of oil or something. I mean, these knives served a purpose. And even if it's not something I would carry every day now, I do carry it occasionally. I carry all my knives that I restore occasionally, if only to prove to myself that the restoration was worth the time. Now, does this knife have much walk and talk left? It's got a little bit here. Yeah. It's got zip zero zilch here, and maybe just a tiny bit there. Nah, not much. It kind of is what it is. This back spring is very weak. I would trust this knife for very light duty, but I would not trust it for anything beyond that. I just do not think it would hold up. I was able to get, like I said, everything pretty clean on it and in good working order, but I cannot bring it completely back from the dead. That is beyond my skills. Now, this knife, it's not the gem of my collection or anything, but I enjoyed restoring it. I enjoy restoring any knife, honestly. This will probably be left to my boys, and since it has no real sentimental value to me, if they care to move it on, when they get it later on in life, then that's fine too. It's not like I grew up carrying it or anything like that. But I do kind of picture, possibly some kid in the 50s whittling with this thing, or popping open his Fanta bottle or something like that, taking a sip while he's sitting out on the front porch, on a swing or something. I mean, I've always kind of liked, like the whole 50s era and the motif. And one of my favorite movies is A Christmas Story. And I just kind of picture Ralphie with this knife. It's the kind of thing that I could see him carrying. Well, I've enjoyed talking about the knife tonight. I hope you enjoyed listening. Maybe we all learned something. Take care. God bless. I'll see you next time.